about best man speeches and maids of honor speeches and how they often have these same sort of structures, right? You know, you get the sort of like, you get the story of how you met and the story of when you thought the other person was crazy and then the story of when you realized that they were really your best friend, and then how you never thought they would meet anybody as weird as them, and then they met someone as weird as them, and they lived happily ever after, is the idea. And the interesting thing about, so Shane and I met in a bunch of courses where we studied comparative literature and comparative humanities and all these different things. You begin to see that these things have patterns across different societies because certain types of stories just seem to work. And that what makes them special for different people is not improving the schematic structure, but just telling the specific stories. So here's mine. I moved to Hollis, New Hampshire, in high school, and ended up in this class, Western Humanities, with some of the people in this room. Used to sit next to that tall, really tall bearded dude. Yep. And, you know, we would read things, we'd write things, and there was one thing which Ben and I were not particularly good at, which was raising our hand. And there was one kid who I didn't know yet in the back corner of the room who was very good about raising his hand, which meant that he never got to talk. And I didn't know him yet, I just knew that he sort of looked like Beaker. And that as we would talk, and I would, really me more, I would talk, and he would raise his hand, and his hand would get higher and higher, and his face would get redder and redder. He got politer and politer. Eventually, you know, we got paired together, we started working together, and I realized that I had found this strange person, Shane Lacoste, who everybody already called Super Shane. And I learned that this was because he was sort of like a superhero. That there was something superlative about all of his characteristics. He was a living cartoon character. He had this sort of, super weird hair and these supersized calves. And all of his emotions were not a normal human range of emotions. When he got excited, he got super excited. And when he got sad, he got super sad. And there was so much third eye blind to be had. And, you know, the amazing thing about this was that Shane brought this incredible energy and life into everything that we did, even the dumb things that we did, even trying at probably 140 pounds each to play football in high school on Super Scout, because neither of us was talented enough to actually play any games, but they needed someone to serve as tackling dummies. And I remember once playing out there, we'd get all amped up and we'd yell at each other and we'd promise we were good, and then Ben would pull off the line and literally pick me up and throw me into Shane as someone ran by. Now, we did a lot of things together, in pep rally and, you know, working on all these student government activities, everything else, and then we graduated and went off to college, and I didn't really know how to deal with being away from my best friend, and I don't know if he knew how to deal with being away from me, or if we knew from being away from our hometowns and our home communities and our families and our siblings and everything else. And I worried about Shane for a while. I was worried that he wasn't going to find anybody as weird as him, particularly anybody as superlative as him in these various ways. And then he met Colleen. And I met Colleen. And the first thing I saw when I met Colleen was, this is a Disney princess come to life. And I'm sure you thought that all today when you saw her in that dress, because that is not a dress that humans wear. That is a dress that Belle wears in a nice little Beauty and the Beast sort of situation that we have going on here tonight. And that she was the most expressive person I had ever met, with the biggest, most innocent or evil eyes, and just an incredibly emoting face. And then I remember relatively early on in knowing Colleen, I made some joke like I typically do about Shane's cats, and she said, "Oh, I know. But they're so useful because when the zombie apocalypse comes, I'll eat those parts first." And they'll keep me fed for weeks. So, what I would really like, to ask all of you to do here today is to recognize that these are the stories that we all have. We all could tell these versions of the stories. But what really matters is the stories that they will have for the rest of their lives, the stories that they will have to share for themselves, privately and publicly, and for each other. And, I'd like everybody to raise a toast, if you don't mind.
Cheers. Did you?
A toast to Shane and Colleen. May they live happily ever after.
Let's give it up for our best man, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a big round of applause. Petey! And at this time, I'd like to invite our maids of honor.